I came across a term for something that I have been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years, and the term is called doom spending. USA News, they describe it as doom spending refers to a phenomenon that occurs when people spend money to cope with stress despite concerns about the economy and foreign affairs, according to a 2023 study by Qualtrics on behalf of Intuit Credit Karma. I think this is a perfect term to use to describe that behavior, and this is something that I have been noticing for quite a while, but it became a lot more prevalent around COVID or right after COVID because at that point, everybody was super stressed. It seemed as though the world was ending, so people just thought, hey, I'll buy whatever. But the reason why I think it was occurring before, especially with younger generations, when you grew up, you dealt with 9/11, you dealt with war, you dealt with a financial crisis, then you dealt with COVID. It's just a nonstop barrage of these horrifying events. But then throw in the education where you're taught, hey, global warming. If we don't do enough in the next couple of years, we're all going to die. So if you are brought up as a child being ingrained with that information and you think the world is going to end, why the hell would you want to save for your future? Why would you be planning financially for the future? And I think that's why we see a lot of this behavior where people don't care about saving in their retirements. They don't care about making sure they can afford what they're buying. They just think, who cares if I can afford it? Let's put it on a credit card and buy this little knickknack that gives me a fleeting sense of happiness, that gives me a little bit of an escape from this doom that is hanging over all of our heads because when we spend so much time on social media, every day is the end of the world. So it makes perfect sense. It may not be responsible behavior. It may not be proper behavior. They should be saving for the future and ensuring they have money to retire. But at the same time, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense. If you think the world is going to end in 5, 10 years because that's all you've been told, why the hell would you plan for more than 5 or 10 years in the future? And I think that's going to lead to a lot of problems in the future, a lot of issues in 10, 15, 30 years when people start retiring and they don't have retirements because they just spent all their money. They spent more money than they had because the world was going to end and perhaps it won't. Most likely it won't. The world will go on. Many of us will live on. And we will, hopefully, if we're lucky, if we're fortunate, be able to retire. Don't rely on Social Security. I'll just say that much. I also want to talk about something tangentially related to this. I've had this as a note on a little piece of paper for months. Guilt over spending money. This is something that I noticed as I became more and more frugal. I do like buying nice things. I do like buying high quality items. But at the same time, I have found myself experiencing guilt over that. And I don't necessarily know the cause of that. Maybe it's just I have an incredibly unhealthy relationship with money. And money scares me, and I just want to put it away and not think about it and just save it for a rainy day when I can retire. Or maybe it's the fact that I see other people struggling. Maybe I see other people having difficulties with money or not understanding proper financial etiquette. And when I go out and spend money on something extravagant, a nice meal, going out for coffee, going on a trip, doing any of that, sometimes there's guilt that's associated with that. I don't necessarily think there should be guilt, especially if it isn't overly extravagant, if you aren't flaunting it nonstop saying, hey, look at all these fancy cars I have. Look at all these amazing vacations and beautiful women I'm hanging out with on Instagram. If you're not doing that and you are living a relatively frugal life, I don't necessarily think there should be guilt when you do indulge. But I guess that goes back to just psychology of when you get into these habits, they're incredibly hard to break. And maybe it's my addictive personality. I get addicted to not spending money. That would be a weird thing to be addicted to. I don't know. Is there any point to this? No. Maybe I'll think more about it and have some concrete thoughts, but I just check that off my list. I like checking things off of my to-do list, and that's been sitting on a piece of paper for months, and now I can cross it off.